Okay, so for your warm up, you got this shape right here. So what is this thing right here? Good. This is a triangular prism. Okay, we call it a triangular prism. Why do we call it a triangular prism? Because the bases are triangles. Okay? Now, this triangular prism definitely confuses people. Okay? So I want you to see this. All right, if this thing is sitting like this, okay? What is this? It's a triangular prism. What if it's sitting like this? What is this? It's a triangular prism. It don't matter how it's sitting, how it's laying, whatever, it's still a triangular prism. And that's what confuses people. If it's sitting like this, and they see it like that on their paper where it's sitting on the triangles, no problem. That's a triangular prism. But when we go to laying it like this, now they're thinking about, okay, that's laying on a rectangle. So is that like a rectangular pyramid or something? Or, I mean, that's what happens. It gets confusing for people. But just know it's silly. I mean, because going from here to here, it changes what it is. No, it's a triangular prism. It doesn't matter if it's like this, or it doesn't matter how I move that. It's a triangular prism. Okay? So also, and we're about to talk about this in a second, one way to know what sides are the bases on a prism is the two sides that are parallel to each other. Now, that's not an absolute rule because there's sometimes like a hexagonal prism where there's going to be some of the rectangles that are parallel to each other. But in general, that's a good way to know is the two sides that are parallel to each other are the bases. Okay. So let's go ahead and flip over to this. Okay, the bases for a prism are the two sides that are parallel to each other. And again, this is just a general rule. It's not absolute, but it's a pretty good rule of thumb to use. On a prism, the bases are the sides that are parallel to each other. And then for a pyramid, the base for a pyramid is a side that is not a triangle. And again, that's just a general rule, not absolute. Because there is one shape that doesn't fit into this, at least one shape. What do you think is the exception to this rule on the second one? The base for a pyramid is a side that's not a triangle. Yeah, a triangular pyramid. Okay. Is at least one exception to this rule right here. But for the most part, that's a good rule to follow. On a pyramid, the side that's not the triangles is the base of it. Okay, we talked about this yesterday, but I just want to reemphasize it. In a prism, always has two bases. Like I said, right next to there, it's the two sides that are parallel to each other. A pyramid only has one base. Okay, another way to tell the difference between a prism and a pyramid is that a prism has rectangular faces, where a pyramid has triangular faces. Okay, so today everything is about identifying the base, figuring out what side is the base. For a lot of people, whenever they can get that figured out, they've got it whipped. They can do any of this kind of stuff, but sometimes that's the hard thing is finding where the base is. Okay, so on this first one, and as we go through here, we're going to shade the bases as we do this. So number one, what type of 3D figure is that? Yeah, triangular prism. It's just like the thing we did in our warm-up, cutting that out and folding that thing up. This is a triangular prism. So what shape is the base, or I say type of base? What's the shape of the base for that thing? Triangle. Okay, so let's go in here and let's shade in these bases. So on this next line, what we're going to do is we're going to find the area of the base, so I'm looking for the area of that triangle. So how do I find the area of that type of base? Base times height divided by 2. And that's another area where this gets confusing. This is the base. Okay, the triangle is the base. And whenever we say base times height divided by 2, I'm talking about the base of the base. So that's what messes people up sometimes. So when I'm looking for the area of this triangle, the base of the base is 8, and the height of the base is 6.92. So we're going to do 8 times 6.92 divided by 2. Again, just base times height divided by 2. So I'm just looking for the area of the triangle, so I'm forgetting about the rest of that 3D figure. I'm just focusing in on the triangle right here. So I'm doing 8 times 6.92 divided by 2. And that is an 8. It looks kind of like a 3, but that's an 8. What do you get for the area? 27.68 square centimeters. All right. And then perimeter of the base. So just adding up all the outside edges of the base. What's the perimeter going to be? 29.2 centimeters. Okay, just adding the 10.6 plus the 10.6 plus the 8. Okay, number 2, what type of 3D figure is this?
Cylinder.
Okay, good. So, yep, this is a cylinder. What shape is its base? Circle. Okay, how do you find the area? Oh, let's go ahead and shade those in. So here's the bases. How do we find the area of that type of base? Good. For a circle, pi r squared. So on this one, we're going to do pi times 6 squared. What does that give you? 113.1 square centimeters. Now, in all these, we're talking about perimeter, but when we're dealing with the circle, we don't call it perimeter, we call it circumference. But circumference basically is the perimeter of a circle. It is the perimeter of a circle. So how do we find circumference of a circle? 2 pi r or pi times d, either one of those. So pi times r, 2 pi times 6. Yep. $37.7. Okay, so that's how far it is around that thing. Whoops. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and go over to number 5. Okay, so number 5, what's this? Okay, a triangular prism. So what shape is its base? Triangle. So how are we going to find the area of that base? Good. 2 times 3. Oh yeah, let's shade in the bases, sorry. So what's the area of the base? 3 square yards. Now for the perimeter, I know this side's 2, but I don't know these sides right here. Okay, but I do know this is 3. And if this is an isosceles, which we're going to assume that, how far is it from here to here? It's going to be 1. The whole thing is 2, so that's half of that. This is 3. So how can I find this over here now? Pythagorean theorem. And I'm just going to do the little shortcut here. So we're going to have 3 squared plus 1 squared, square rooted. Okay, so for the perimeter, it's going to be 3.16 plus 3.16 plus 2. 6, 8, 8.32. Okay, number 6. What is this? Okay, this is a hexagonal prism. So what shape is its base? This is a hexagon. Okay, I'm not going to shade in both bases because it's going to kind of get messy here. But that's one of the bases. Obviously, the other hexagon is another base. Now, how do we find the area of this type of a shape? Yeah, I've got it written different here than what we've been talking about. We've just been doing apothem times perimeter divided by 2. Same thing. Let's go ahead and do it like that. So how long is the apothem for this base? It's 24. How long is what is the perimeter of the base? 26, 26, 26, 26, 26, and 26 is what? 156. So we're going to do 24 times 156 divided by 2. The apothem times the perimeter divided by 2. What does that give you?
1872.
1,872. Okay, square feet. What's the perimeter of the base?
156.
Yeah, we already did it right there, 156. Now, this one right here is the one that kind of is an exception to what we've been talking about. So what is this? Okay, this is a rectangular prism. So what shape is the base for that?
Square.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and keep the generic term here of rectangle. Now here's the problem. This is a rectangular prism. Rectangles is the base. But the problem is all of the sides are rectangles. Okay, whereas like up here on this one's a hexagonal prism. We call it a hexagonal prism because the bases are hexagons. So it's obvious what sides are the bases. Here, since all of the sides are rectangles, how do we know which two sides are the bases since they're all rectangles? Okay, in this situation and only for a rectangular prism, this is the only place where this applies. The only way is if they tell you specifically, and if they don't tell you specifically, we're just going to assume the side that it's laying on is the base. But we only use that assumption for rectangular prisms because all of the sides are rectangles. Okay? So we're going to assume that those two sides are the bases. Unless, again, something tells you otherwise. All right, so how am I going to find the area of that base? Yeah, length times width. 12.6 times 4.5. What does that give you?
56.7.
56.7 square centimeters. And then the perimeter of the base, just adding those up, 4.5 plus 12.6 plus 4.5 plus 12.6. What's the perimeter?
34.2.
Okay, now what I had in mind, I'm just going to go ahead and do, I don't want to do that. So go ahead and just X that off on your paper, that one. And then on your assignment, I think there's one or two like that have two of them. Same thing on your assignment, just X off the second one. And just do it like what I said there.